Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Faiz Fakira binti Wayak. I will present my final year project which review on impacts of nuclear disaster and its management. I am supervised by Puan Nur Syaadah binti Zainuddin. There are 5 main parts that I would like to discuss here, which is introduction, short-term impact, health problem, environmental problem, management, and conclusion. There have been many nuclear accidents that was happened around the world. Among all, Chernobyl nuclear power plant, CNPP disaster, and Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, FDNPP disaster, was the main nuclear disaster in the last half century. CNPP disaster, which happened in 1986, was level 7 according to International Nuclear Event Scale (INES). It was happened due to serious mistakes made by the operators, resulting in the emission of many radioactive materials from the reactor's core. FDNPP nuclear disaster was also level 7 according to INES. It was happened due to Tohoku earthquake, which then triggered tsunami, which damaged the reactor. The objective of this review are to discuss about the short-term and long-term impact which result from the all nuclear disasters as listed above and its management from the hazard list. While the problem statement first are the importance of acknowledging the effective human and management of central government towards nuclear disaster. Second is awareness of the dangers that can come from the nuclear disasters. Radionuclides is atoms that release excess energy by the emission of gamma rays or alpha particles or beta particles when they undergo radioactive decay. How dangerous radiation is. As a person absorbs radiation, the particles from the radiation will interact with the body tissue to transfer its energy. At low dose rate, the damage to the cell is not severe and the cell will be able to repair itself. However, at high dose rate, the damage to the cell is severe. It can grow cancer cell leading to tumor. There are two types of nuclear radiation effect, which is acute radiation effect and stochastic effect. Acute radiation effect can be divided to two types, which is thermal burns and acute radiation syndrome. Acute radiation syndrome has 4 phases, which is prodrome, latent phase, manifest illness stage, and recovery. In the first week after the CNPP nuclear disaster, there are 31% died. The first victim was killed by explosion, second victim from coronary thrombosis, and third victim was died due to acute radiation syndrome (ARS). Acute radiation syndrome is an acute illness caused by irradiation of the whole body or large part of the body by a high dose of radiation, roughly 1 gray in a short time. Then, there are 28% die later at the treatment centers due to the excess whole body dose of 6.5 Gray, which is 6 times the threshold dose to induce the ARS. Overall, there are 134% was diagnosed with acute radiation syndrome. All the victims consist of clean-up workers and person in charge for firefighting.
Table 1 shows the variation of citizens' experiences in Chernobyl. The source of this table are from DW documentary discussing about 35 years after the CNPP disaster. Boris Genstein, a military emergency team firefighter, stated that during that time, the first 2 fire units who were 5 minutes away arrived at the reactor will all die. Polina Polsky, a doctor in Pripyat Hospital, Pripyat is located at 3 kilometers away from the CNPP. Up until now, Pripyat has become an abandoned city due to the nuclear particles fallout. Polina stated that at that time, none of early workers survived due to the terrible burns. She and her friends also decided to call for an emergency checkup on all pregnant women. It was discovered that all fetus had heart defect, eye problems, malformation, and their limbs were deformed. Polina also witnessed a firefighter's deadly burn face. Vladimir Kagan is an electrical engineer at the CNPP. He and his team were instructed to build a protective structure over the reactor that had been exploded, the sarcophagus. Gennady Fireman is a battalion commander. He witnessed a robot instructed to remove the debris fell from the ceiling of the reactor due to the very high level of radiation. Alexander Kalantovsky is a chief engineer at the reactor dome construction project. He stated that workers only allowed to work 2 minutes on the roof. After the Chernobyl and Fukushima nuclear disaster, mental health problems are very common. Some of the factors are separation from family members, understanding about health effects from radiation exposure, long-term evacuation, perception of radiation risk, collapse of the community, and high concerns of radiation impact toward their fertility and progeny. Examples of mental health problems are radiation health anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD), and depressive symptoms. Following the accident, Fukushima Prefecture had launched a population-based survey of women who were pregnant at the time of the Fukushima nuclear accident to assess the mother and their newborn's health. Among their 8,196 women, 2,262, which is 20%, were reported having depressive symptoms. Sendai Nuclear Power Station is an earliest nuclear power station re-enabled after the FDNPP accident. Among their 1,181 general administrative officers, it is observed that female officers had significantly higher anxiety than male officers. Female is 27.5% and male is 12.9%. While in Chernobyl, clean-up workers experienced more depression and suicidal ideation than non-clean-up workers after the accident. Besides, adults who are living in contaminated areas around the CNPP had also high anxiety health and incidence of PTSD. The total of radioactive iodine released after the Fukushima nuclear disaster has been estimated to be about 10% of total iodine released after Chernobyl accident. Toddlers and child is more sensitive to radiation than adults because they have smaller body diameter and size, also naturally active human core. Thus, they are more likely to develop acute and stochastic effect of radiation exposure. Mainly, the intake of iodine 131 is through inhalation and consumption of contaminated milk, leafy vegetables, and dairy products. From 2005 to 2016, a study had took place at Minnesota Municipal General Hospital and Watanabe Hospital, located in Minnesota City, the largest town in Seso District. Seso District, located approximately 15 to 40 km north of the FDNPP. 298 patients were newly identified with breast cancer, which is 167 pre-disaster patients and 131 post-disaster patients. Thyroid screening towards people aged 18 years and below soon after the disaster also observes 101 cases. However, there are no confirmation from any study that show thyroid cancer is increasing with time due to the radiation dose to the thyroid is low. After CNPP nuclear accident, the radiation dose to the thyroid gland was high in Belarus, UK and South Russia. Belarus, located approximately 220 km from CNPP, and South Russia, located approximately 4,270 km from CNPP. There are also release of huge amount of radioactivity, which is over 10 power of 19 becquerel. Also, their exposure to iodine 131, especially during childhood, could increase the risk of thyroid cancer. Moreover, there are high level of contamination, which is no shielding, no food restriction, and late evacuation, which factors that contribute. Nearly 5,000 confirmed cases of thyroid cancer were reported by 2002 among children and teenagers aged up to 18 at the time of the accident in Ukraine, Belarus, and South Russia. In 1984 to 1991, thyroid cancer was stationary. In 1992, thyroid cancer started to rise. From 1991 to 1995, doubtful increasing pattern in thyroid cancer incidence rate among children under 10 years old in Belarus. In 1995, the rate of childhood thyroid carcinoma incidence in Belarus has reached 50 people per million, while in 1996 the pattern subsequently declined, especially for children who were born after the accident. Following the Edo siege in Fukushima, about 480,000 to 900,000 radioactive were released, in which iodine-131 was the major source. Factors contribute are damage to Unit 2 suppression chamber, radioactive half-life, and wet well venting. In March 14, 2011, iodine-131 leaked in the order of 10 power of 13 to 10 power of 14 becquerel per hour. In March 15, 2011, iodine-131 lead increased in the order of 10 power of 16 becquerel per hour. In March 16, 2011 to March 24, 2011, iodine-131 lead in the order of 10 power of 14 becquerel per hour, and in March 25, 2011 to early April 2011, iodine-131 lead in the order of 10 power of 11 to 10 power of 12 becquerel per hour. Urban areas are a human community with a high population density and built environment infrastructure, while the factors of decreasing air dosage in urban areas are radioactive decay, anthropogenic influences on the ground, radionuclide migrations associated with horizontal wash-off and vertical penetration into the ground, decontamination, and weathering impact. Abukuma River is the largest river in Fukushima Province. Its three catchments are Koitashiyama, Iboishiyama, and Ishidairayama. In Koitashiyama, the concentration of cesium-137 is 1.1 becquerel per liter in June 25, 2011. In Iboishiyama, the concentration of cesium-137 is 1.2 becquerel per liter in August 6, 2011, and in Ishidairayama, the concentration of cesium-137 is 0.56 becquerel per liter in August 17, 2011. Some managements in Fukushima are stable iodine distribution, thyroid ultrasound examination, evacuation order, and decontamination. Stable iodine can saturate the thyroid gland. It is estimated the absorbed dose was 100 mg. However, there are still distribution of stable iodine in Miharu town. Following the thyroid ultrasound examination, Fukushima Health Management Survey has conducted 3 rounds of thyroid ultrasound examination, in which 154 cases were identified in first round. Evacuation orders are within 20 kilometers of the plant. Thus, citizens involved are living in temporary housing, municipally subsidized centers, and new residences. It is observed that population of Minosoma City has decreased drastically after evacuation order. Following the decontamination, in March 2016, there are over 13 million workers involved in clean-up operations. Air dosage were lower by 56% in residential areas, 58% in agricultural, and 23% in forests. Management by Soviet Union following the Chernobyl nuclear disaster is stable iodine distribution, which is distributed in Poland. Thus, thyroid gas does not increase in Poland. There are also the sarcophagus, which is built in 2016. It is a massive concrete barrier to prevent additional radioactive release in the next 10 years. Workers in Chernobyl must also work in specified shift length, be monitored for radiation exposure, and have regular health examinations. In a conclusion, both residents involved from CNPP and FDNPP nuclear disaster show depressive symptoms. After FDNPP nuclear disaster, there was no confirmation from any study that showed thyroid cancer is increasing with time, but CNPP show otherwise. Besides, after CNPP, there are about 134% has diagnosed with acute radiation symptoms, ARS. Lastly, stable iodine distribution, early evacuation order, and decontamination helps to minimize nuclear disaster effects from all aspects.